district and support me on March 15th. Before I talk about that, let me talk about the last election. In 2015, National Republicans spent more money against me in our campaign than any other congressional Democrat in the country. And you might ask, why did they do that? Well, the first thing, you look at their commercials, they attacked me because I was a staunch defender of the Affordable Care Act, protecting President Obama's signature piece of legislation, because we need to make sure that every American has access to quality, affordable health care, and I'm going to continue to do that. They might have attacked me because of my record as a 100% advocate for women's choice, my 100% score from Planned Parenthood, from NARAL. They might have attacked me because of the A I got from Sierra Club for the work I did on the environment. The fact that we were able to get funding for the Great Lakes Restoration, full funding for the Great Lakes Restoration, that I was a champion of. I got for the A, maybe they attacked me for the S, I got from the NRA. My first speech in Congress, which may not have changed the world, but every member's first speech is important to them. And when everyone told me you don't take the NRA on, my first speech from the floor of the House of Representatives was about reducing gun violence, calling for a universal background check and a ban on assault weapons. I think at the end of the day, the reasons the Republicans attacked me with such venom and with so much money was because I was taking the fight to them. And it's that fight that I believe is going to help us win next November and continue to work for the things we started to do in 2012 to continue in 2016. Before I talk about that, let me tell those who don't know me a little bit about my history. I come from Colorado, from a very close-knit family. The matriarch of our family was my grandmother Molly, my maternal grandmother. All of my great-grandparents were immigrants from Eastern Europe. Molly's story, she fled Kiev, Tsarist Russia, the pogroms in the early 1900s, made it across the continent to England. And they were scheduled to take a ship called the Titanic. Thank God her younger brother Sam, for whom I'm named after, got sick and they waited a week. They came to the United States and were welcomed to a country that took them in with open arms, gave them opportunities to succeed and to prosper. That's why when the Republicans were talking about closing our borders to refugees, I stood up, I put an article in Huffington Post that said that's not who we are as a country. I wrote it to my sons telling them that story because that wouldn't honor the country that welcomed my family and gave us the opportunities to go from refugees from Tsarist Russia to representative in the United States House, in the United States Congress. My grandmother was the wisest person I know. She taught me to treat everyone the same, whether they were a prince or a street sweeper. She taught me you have one mouth and two ears. Use them in proportion. My mother is the one who gave me my progressive values. I remember as a 7-year-old canvassing throughout Denver for Hubert Humphrey and crying when Nixon won because my team lost. My father is the one who gave me my principles. He taught us that character counts. He taught us that it matters what you do, and you stand for your principles no matter the cost. And that's what brings me to Congress today. Besides family, I'm involved in the community, coaching my kids' soccer and baseball teams, involved in their schools, in my synagogue, on a broader level, in Jewish Federation, Council on Global Affairs. I'm on the board of the Waukegan Library. I'm on the board of the Civic Leadership Foundation, because I was raised with the maxim that if I'm not for myself, who will be? But if I'm only for myself, what am I? And that's what leads me to Congress and why I'm running again. Everywhere I go around this district, I hear the same thing. Though the numbers may be good on the economy, they're not feeling it. We're not feeling it here at home. The middle class is under pressure. The United States has a middle class that's shrinking. We cannot grow our economy without a growing middle class. But we've seen a Republican Congress that believes in trickle-down economics, that continues to believe that we need to support the have-lots rather than the have-nots. I believe we need an economy that is working for everyone, that is growing from the middle out, that gives everybody a chance to succeed, has ladders and pathways for people to achieve their aspirations. That means an education system that works for everybody. As Napoleon said, it shouldn't matter where you live if you have an opportunity for a good education. We need a college system where people can afford to go to college. I come around the district and I hear the same thing again over and over. College is getting increasingly out of reach for my children. I don't know how they'll succeed. And how can our children reach the middle class if they don't have the most important gateway into that middle class, which is the college education? I hear people talking about health care. The Republicans have again repeated time and time again, we're going to repeal the Affordable Care Act. Let me say it here and let me say it now. We are not going to allow the Affordable Care Act to be repealed. We're going to continue to work to make sure that every American has access to the quality and affordable health care they deserve. And then we're going to ask for all Americans to have more time to make their case and to present their speech. I'm Brad Schneider, and that's your support. Thank you very much.
Now we have Nancy Rotary, candidate for representative in the 10th Congressional District in U.S. Congress.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. As a lifelong Democrat, someone who's worked on campaigns, I'll say it, since the 80s, I know how much blood, sweat, and tears we put into these campaigns, and I appreciate your time, so thanks for coming out this morning. I'm going to share a little bit about myself as well, and I'm looking forward to answering your questions. I grew up in the district, went to public school here, and went to Stanford, where I majored in economics. I then went to Northwestern, where I got my MBA, and went to Detroit after that to work for General Motors on their treasurer staff. I met my husband at Kellogg's. I came back to Chicago a few years later and went to the University of Chicago Law School and then practiced healthcare law with McDermott, Will & Emery for about 8 years. For 30 years, I've been dedicated to access to healthcare, whether it's been on the policy side, on the professional side, on the provider side, on the payer side. This is my industry. I understand it, and I'm committed to everybody in this country having access to healthcare. We know in this room, all of us, let's think about our families. You have somebody in your family who is dependent on health care. And if they can't get to work or get to school or get to the doctor or function in their community, their lives are hampered because of their inability to get the medical care they need. So I'm very dedicated to making sure people have access to health care. Along the way, we had 4 kids, and when we have kids, we get involved in our communities, and on behalf of my children, I ran Cub Scouts, I coached soccer, I was the PTO president, and at the same time I wanted to get involved in my community. So I served on the Highland Park Environmental Commission, starting an environmental advocacy program for the kindergarten through 8th graders in my community, and then served on my plan commission. And while I was there, some of the questions were sort of forming in my head in terms of decisions that were being made by the people running my city, and I decided to run for city council. And I went up to the council members and I said, hey, I'm thinking of running for city council. What do you think? And they said, we're good. We've got our people. Thanks very much. And 2 years later, I came back and said, I think there might be a guy who's quitting. I'd like to run. And they said, if he does, you're our candidate. But in the end, he decided to stick around. And so I thought, this isn't really how democracy works. If we have questions, we need to get out there. We need to have the opportunity to have our voices be heard. And so I ran for city council against 3 incumbents whose race was being run by the mayor, and I came in first place. And I had the opportunity to ask my questions, and 2 years later, I wasn't getting the answers that I wanted, so I ran for mayor, and I became the first woman mayor of Highland Park. And brought along like-minded individuals who shared my priorities of transparency and accountability and communication, and letting people know why certain decisions were being made. We've done amazing things. We've balanced every budget, $85 million budget. We've maintained a AAA bond rating, something only a handful of cities in Illinois can claim. But we've also taken care of our people. We've heard human service needs. And so we created a legal aid clinic to help our residents who needed help on their path to citizenship, to help people who are in abusive domestic relationships get the counsel that they needed. And we also have fought tough fights. When we had power outages in 2011, I didn't just go, oh my. I took on ComEd and said, let's go Northeast Illinois. Let's go take on this utility and demand that they provide us with the power that we should have. The comments were being made. This isn't a third world nation. We shouldn't have to endure these power outages over and over and over again. And at the end of the day, ComEd invested over $50 million in the equipment infrastructure, and our power outages have gone down. When the state of Illinois gave us an opportunity to speak out against gun violence, when they passed concealed carry and said to cities, you've got 10 days to ban assault weapons, I asked my council members, one of whom is here today, and said, what do you want to do? And after 30 seconds, we said, of course we need to pass a ban against assault weapons. And the NRA said, we're going to sue you. And we all concluded, with Newtown in the back of our minds, we needed to take action. We needed to speak out for those who didn't have a voice any longer. And we banned assault weapons in large capacity magazines. Yes, we got sued. My first move was to call Dick Durbin's office and to say, what have you got in terms of pro bono legal services? The Brady campaign stepped up and took us all the way to the United States Supreme Court, where we now have a model ordinance that's being upheld and shared nationally with other communities who want to reduce gun violence. This seat has been in play for 6 years. We have all worked on these campaigns for 6 years. It's time to get a champion, not just an ally, running for Congress in the 10th District. I have the passion, I have the energy, I've got the team, and I'm willing to do whatever it takes to win this seat in 2016 and to hold this seat in 2018. I'm proud to tell you, I'm endorsed by Senator Dick Durbin, the Moraine Township Dems, the Northfield Township Dems, the New Trier Township Dems, Barbara Flynn Curry, Ab Mikva, Julie Hamus, and Dan Seals. I would love your support in this race. I'd love your help in this race. I hope I can count on you March 15th. I'm Nancy Rotering. I am running for United States Congress. Thank you.
Next up is State Senator Melinda Bush.